Ethan Carter never expected his simple cargo delivery job to turn into a life-or-death situation. One moment, he was cruising through an uncharted sector of space, humming to himself, and the next, alarms were blaring as pirate ships appeared on his radar. "Great," he muttered, gripping the controls. Just another day in paradise. The pirates opened fire, and his small freighter shook violently. Ethan had no choice. He needed to escape. Spotting a nearby jungle planet, he made a desperate dive, entering the thick atmosphere at dangerous speeds. His ship rattled, heat warnings flashed, and for a moment, he thought he wouldn't make it. But with a final push, he managed to crash land into the dense forest below. Smoke curled from his damaged ship as Ethan stumbled out, coughing. His landing wasn't perfect, but he was alive. Now, he needed to figure out where he was and how to fix his ship before the pirates tracked him down. The jungle was unlike anything he had seen before. Massive trees with glowing leaves, vines that pulsed with light, and strange sounds echoing through the air. He grabbed his blaster and started walking. He needed to find water, maybe some food, and most importantly, a way to send a distress signal. Then he heard it. A scream. It wasn't human, but it was unmistakably a cry for help. Ethan hesitated for a second, then ran toward the sound. His instincts told him it was a bad idea, but he couldn't ignore someone in trouble. Pushing through thick foliage, he found a small clearing. In the center, a tall, elegant alien woman lay against a broken tree, blood trickling down her arm. She had shimmering violet skin, deep golden eyes, and long, flowing silver hair. But what caught Ethan's attention the most was the 3 armored warriors standing over her, weapons drawn. They were not here to help her. Ethan didn't know who she was, but he knew enough about bad situations to recognize one. He took cover behind a tree, heart pounding. The warriors spoke in a language he didn't understand, but their body language was clear. They were going to finish her off. Ethan exhaled. "Okay, Carter. Bad idea number 2 for today." Before he could think too much, he aimed his blaster and fired. The first shot hit one of the warriors in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The other 2 spun around, eyes widening in shock. Ethan didn't give them a chance. He dodged to the side as one of them fired, barely missing him. He rolled behind another tree, took quick aim, and took down the second attacker. The last warrior hesitated. Ethan could see the doubt in his posture. A single human had just taken down 2 of them in seconds. The alien made a decision. He turned and ran into the jungle. Ethan kept his weapon raised for a moment before lowering it. "Yeah, you better run," he muttered. He rushed over to the fallen woman. Up close, she was even more stunning, but he focused on the more important detail. She was wounded. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, kneeling beside her. Her golden eyes fluttered open, filled with both pain and confusion. She stared at him for a long moment before whispering something in her language. "Yeah, I don't understand that," Ethan said, glancing at her injury. It wasn't fatal, but she had lost a lot of blood. He pulled a small med kit from his belt and carefully wrapped her wound. "I don't know who you are, but you're lucky I showed up when I did." She watched him in silence, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke again, this time in perfect English. "You saved me." Ethan blinked. Yeah, guess I did." A strange expression crossed her face. "You do not understand what you have done." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a deep, rumbling sound filled the air. Ethan turned and saw a massive alien ship descending through the sky, heading straight for them. The woman's eyes widened. "They have come for me," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, then at the approaching ship, and exhaled. He had a bad feeling about this. "Yeah," he muttered, "I think I just stepped into something big." Ethan Carter stood frozen as the massive alien ship descended through the sky, its dark metallic frame reflecting the dim jungle light. The ship was unlike anything he had seen before, sleek, elegant, and clearly built for war. A chill ran down his spine. "Friends of yours?" he asked the alien woman. She struggled to sit up, her golden eyes fixed on the approaching vessel. "It depends." "Depends." Ethan frowned. "On what?" "On whether they come to save me, or to finish what the assassins started." Ethan didn't like the sound of that. His instincts told him to run, but he also knew that if the ship wanted them dead, hiding wouldn't help. The vessel landed smoothly in the clearing, its engines humming softly before shutting down. A large ramp extended from its side, and a group of heavily armed alien soldiers marched out in perfect formation. At the center of the group stood a tall, imposing man with deep violet skin and piercing silver eyes. He wore a regal-looking black and gold uniform, and there was no mistaking his authority. His gaze fell on the wounded woman beside Ethan, and his expression hardened. "Princess Kaialvana," he said in a deep, commanding voice. "You are alive." Ethan's eyes widened. "Princess." He had just saved a royal. Zalvanna exhaled, her posture straightening despite her injury. "Commander Vorik, you took your time." "My apologies, Highness," Vorik said, bowing slightly. "We were missiled by false reports. It was only after we intercepted an enemy transmission that we found your true location." His gaze shifted to Ethan, eyes narrowing. "And who is this human?" Zalvanna's expression changed slightly. Ethan couldn't quite place it, but there was something in her golden eyes, a strange intensity. "This," she said slowly, "is the man who saved me." The air in the clearing grew thick with tension. Ethan didn't understand why until he noticed the way the soldiers stiffened at Zalvanna's words. Even Vorik's expression darkened, as if something had just gone terribly wrong. Ethan raised his hands cautiously. Okay, I feel like I missed something important here." Zalvanna turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "Ethan Carter, do you know what it means in Dravok culture to save the life of a royal?" He blinked. I figure I'd get a thank you at least." The silence that followed told him he was very, very wrong. Zalvanna took a deep breath. "In our empire, if a royal's life is saved by another, it is considered an unbreakable life debt. And when a male saves a royal female," she hesitated for a moment, "it is seen as an act of courtship." Ethan felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. "Wait, are you saying?" "You have fulfilled an ancient rite," she confirmed. "By our laws, you and I are now bonded." Ethan's mind went blank for a second. Then he let out a short, nervous laugh. "Okay, that's funny. You almost had me there." No one else was laughing. "You're serious?" Ethan's stomach dropped. "You're saying I just accidentally married you?" Zalvanna's gaze didn't waver. "Yes." Ethan ran a hand down his face. "Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. I was just helping." Vorik took a step forward, his expression grim. "Human, our traditions are not to be mocked. The princess's word is law. If she acknowledges the bond, then it is real." Ethan turned to Zalvanna, desperation creeping into his voice. "Look, you seem nice and all, but I'm not really the marry an alien princess type. Can't we just, I don't know, undo this?" Zalvanna sighed. "There is only one way to break the bond." "Great. What is it?" Ethan asked, hopeful. "You must die." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. "That's not really a great option." Zalvanna gave him an apologetic look. "Which is why I suggest you come with us peacefully. If you refuse, the Empire may see your rejection as an insult to our people." Vorik stepped closer, his tone cold. "And insulting the Dravok Empire is an act of war, human." Ethan groaned. "So let me get this straight. I save a stranger's life, and now I'm either married, executed, or the cause of an interstellar war." Zalvanna nodded. "That is correct." Ethan stared at her, then at the group of soldiers, then back at the massive warship behind them. He let out a long breath. "You've got to be kidding me." The princess gave him a small smile. "Welcome to the Dravok Empire, Ethan Carter." The soldiers surrounded him, and before he could process anything further, he was escorted onto the ship. As the ramp closed behind him and the vessel lifted into the sky, Ethan realized one thing. He was in a lot of trouble. Ethan Carter sat in stunned silence as the massive Dravok warship soared through space, leaving the jungle planet behind. The sleek metallic walls of the ship's interior gleamed under dim purple lighting, giving everything an eerie glow. The soldiers who had escorted him aboard now stood at attention, their weapons holstered but their eyes watchful. It was clear they didn't fully trust him. At the center of the room, Princess Exalvana sat calmly on a high-backed chair, her golden eyes focused on him. Despite her injury, she held herself with an air of royalty and authority. Ethan, on the other hand, was still struggling to process what had just happened. "All right," he said, rubbing his temples. "Let's go over this again, slowly, because my brain is still catching up. You're saying I saved your life, which means we're bonded." Zalvana nodded. "Correct. In the eyes of my people, you are now my destined mate." Ethan let out a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, see, humans don't work like that. We usually go on a few dates first. Maybe dinner, a movie, definitely no life-debt marriages." Commander Vorik, who stood beside Zalvana, frowned at Ethan's words. "You mock our traditions, human. Be careful with your tone." Ethan sighed. "I'm not mocking anything. I'm just saying this is crazy. I don't even know you people." Zalvana's expression remained unreadable. "That does not change the fact that you are now tied to the royal family of the Dravok Empire." Ethan sat back, shaking his head. "And what if I say no? What if I refuse?" Vorik's expression darkened. "Then it would be seen as a great insult to our people." Zalvana's voice was softer but no less serious. "Ethan, the Dravok Empire is one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. If you reject this bond, it could be seen as a declaration of hostility. My father, Emperor Korvax, does not take insults lightly." Ethan swallowed hard. "You're saying my personal relationship status could start a war?" Zalvana gave him a small, apologetic nod. "Yes." Ethan exhaled, leaning forward. "Okay, let's say I go along with this for now. What happens next?" Zalvana studied him for a moment. "We will arrive at the capital soon. There you must prove yourself worthy of this bond. Our people will not accept a human into the royal bloodline without proof of strength, intelligence, and honor." Ethan groaned. "Oh great, tests, because being kidnapped into an intergalactic marriage wasn't enough." Zalvana arched an eyebrow. "Would you prefer execution?" Ethan sat up straight. "Nope. Tests are good. I love tests. Big fan of tests." Vorik let out a small, disapproving grunt but said nothing. As they traveled through hyperspace, Ethan was taken to a private guest chamber. It was more luxurious than he expected, with dark blue walls, a soft bed, and even a holographic window showing the stars outside. Still, he felt more like a prisoner than a guest. He sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Just yesterday, he had been a simple cargo pilot. Now he was being forced into a political marriage with an alien princess to prevent a war. "Yeah," he muttered to himself. "This is definitely the weirdest week of my life." A few hours later, the ship exited hyperspace, and Ethan was called to the observation deck. As he stepped inside, his breath caught in his throat. The Dravok capital was unlike anything he had ever seen. The planet below was a sprawling metropolis of titanic skyscrapers, golden spires, and massive floating structures. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, the entire planet glowing with energy fields and technological wonders. At the very center stood a colossal palace, surrounded by a shimmering energy dome. "Welcome to Dravos Prime," Exalvana said beside him. "The heart of the Dravok Empire." Ethan whistled. "I gotta admit, that's impressive." Vorik gave a smug nod. Of course it is. We are the greatest empire in the galaxy. Ethan rolled his eyes. Yeah, real humble. As they descended into the palace, Ethan couldn't help but feel like a bug about to be squashed. The moment they landed, he was escorted out, surrounded by guards as hundreds of alien nobles gathered to watch. They whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with curiosity, doubt, and even disgust. Ethan caught snippets of their words. A human. Unworthy. Why would the princess bond with such a creature? This must be a mistake. Zalvanna ignored the whispers, keeping her head high as they approached the grand throne room. At the far end sat a towering figure, Emperor Korvax. His violet skin was darker than Zalvanna's, his golden eyes sharp like a predator's. He wore a flowing black and gold robe, a heavy crown resting on his brow. His mere presence commanded fear and respect. As Ethan approached, the Emperor's gaze locked onto him. The entire room fell silent. So, Korvax rumbled, "This is the human my daughter has chosen." Ethan gulped. "Oh boy." Zalvanna stepped forward. "Father, this is Ethan Carter. He saved my life." Korvax studied Ethan for a long moment before speaking. "Human, you stand before the ruler of the greatest empire in the stars. Tell me, why should I allow this bond to continue?" Ethan hesitated. He knew one wrong word could get him killed. He took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. "Because I didn't ask for any of this," he said honestly. "But if there's one thing humans are good at, it's surviving impossible situations." For a moment, there was silence. Then, to Ethan's shock, the Emperor chuckled. "Interesting," Korvax said. "Let us see if you are truly worthy, human. The trials of the worthy begin tomorrow." Ethan Carter sat on the edge of his luxurious, but very much locked, guest chamber bed, staring at the ceiling. The trials of the worthy. That was what Emperor Korvax had called them. He let out a frustrated sigh. Could have just said, "Welcome to the family," and handed me a fruit basket. But no, gotta prove I'm worthy first. His stomach churned. He wasn't afraid of challenges, but the Dravok Empire didn't seem like the kind to do friendly obstacle courses. If their military discipline, massive warships, and cold stares were anything to go by, these trials would probably be extremely dangerous. Before he could dwell on it, the doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. Princess Zalvanna entered, dressed in a flowing dark blue robe lined with golden embroidery. Ethan sat up. "So is this where you tell me the trials are just a fun game of chess, and we all go home happy?" Zalvanna's expression was unreadable. "I'm afraid not." "Yeah, didn't think so." Ethan sighed. "What am I walking into?" She stepped closer, her golden eyes serious. "The trials are an ancient tradition. Any outsider who wishes to be part of the royal bloodline must prove themselves through 3 challenges: strength, intelligence, and honor. If you succeed, my father will acknowledge the bond, and you will be accepted. If you fail—" She hesitated. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Lem guess. Death?" Zalvanna didn't answer. She didn't need to. Ethan groaned. "Fantastic. Love the options." Zalvanna's expression softened. "I understand this is unfair to you, Ethan. You never asked for this. But if you flee, my people will see it as a coward's act. That would force my father to respond. With war." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Right. No pressure or anything." She took a step closer. "I believe you can survive this. You saved my life. That already proves you are no ordinary human." Ethan let out a small chuckle, not sure if bravery or dumb luck. Zalvanna smiled slightly. Perhaps both. Before Ethan could reply, the doors opened again, and Commander Vorik entered, his posture rigid. "It is time," he announced. Ethan took a deep breath. "All right, let's do this." Trial 1. Strength. The Colosseum of Dravos Prime was massive. An open arena surrounded by towering stone walls, filled with thousands of Dravok spectators. Their deep violet skin and golden eyes gleamed under the bright artificial sun above. They roared in anticipation, eager to see how a mere human would survive the first trial. Ethan stood in the middle of the arena, hands on his hips, scanning his surroundings. The ground was a mix of hard rock and sand, making it feel like an ancient battleground. Across from him, a massive metal gate slowly rumbled open. From the shadows, a creature stepped forward. Ethan's eyes widened. It was a Draktor beast, a towering six-legged reptilian monster with thick, armored scales and razor-sharp tusks. Its glowing red eyes locked onto him, and it let out a deep, earth-shaking roar. Ethan groaned. Of course, it's a monster fight. A voice boomed over the arena. The trial of strength begins. The Draktor charge. Ethan barely had time to roll out of the way as the creature's tusks smashed into the ground where he had just been standing. Dust and rock flew into the air. "All right, Carter, think," Ethan muttered. "How do you fight a space rhino?" The beast turned and lunged again, but this time Ethan was ready. He dove to the side, barely dodging its attack. He needed a plan. His eyes darted around the arena. The walls. They were made of solid rock, reinforced with metal beams. If he could get the beast to ram into them at full speed. "Hey, ugly," Ethan shouted, waving his arms. "Over here." The Draktor snarled and charged again. At the last second, Ethan sprinted toward the wall, then jumped out of the way. The creature couldn't stop in time. Boom! The entire arena shook as the beast slammed into the reinforced wall. The impact sent a deep crack through the stone. The Draktor staggered, dazed. Ethan didn't waste time. Spotting a loose metal spear lying nearby, he grabbed it and drove it straight into the beast's exposed neck. The Draktor let out a final roar before collapsing. Silence fell over the crowd. Then, cheers erupted. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily, as the announcer's voice rang out. "The human has completed the trial of strength." Ethan smirked, looking up at the royal balcony where Xalvana sat. "One down," he muttered. 2 to go. Trial 2. Intelligence. Hours later, Ethan was led into a dimly lit chamber. In the center stood a massive holographic puzzle, its shifting pieces glowing with intricate symbols. Several Dravok scholars stood nearby, their expressions skeptical. "The trial of intelligence is simple," Vorik announced. "You must solve the Starfire cipher, a puzzle that has challenged even our greatest minds." Ethan scratched his head. "No pressure, right?" Xalvana spoke softly. "Trust yourself." Ethan took a deep breath and approached the holographic puzzle. He studied the shifting patterns and realized it was like a logic sequence. His eyes scanned the symbols, searching for a pattern. After a few moments, something clicked in his mind. "Got it," he muttered. He reached out, carefully adjusting the glowing pieces. One by one, he aligned them in perfect harmony. A deep chime echoed through the chamber. The hologram flashed green. The scholars gasped. "The human solved it," one whispered. Ethan smirked. "Not bad for an unworthy guy, huh?" Xalvana's golden eyes gleamed with approval. Vorik scowled. The announcer's voice echoed again. "The human has passed the trial of intelligence." Ethan exhaled. 2 down. But he knew the next trial would be the hardest. Honor. Ethan Carter stood in the middle of the Grand Palace Hall, his heart pounding in his chest. The first 2 trials had been tough. Fighting a massive alien beast and solving a complex Dravok puzzle. But he had survived. Now only one final challenge remained. The trial of honor. Unlike the first 2 trials, no massive arena or dangerous creatures stood before him. Instead, the room was filled with Dravok nobles, military commanders, and royal advisors, all watching him with cold, calculating expressions. At the far end of the chamber, Emperor Korvax sat on his throne, his piercing golden eyes locked onto Ethan. Princess Xalvana stood to the side, silent but tense. She knew this was the most difficult trial of all. Strength and intelligence could be measured, but honor was something deeper. Ethan took a deep breath. Whatever was coming, he had to be ready. The Emperor raised a hand, and the room fell silent. His voice boomed with authority. The trial of honor is not won through battle or logic, but through the choices you make. Today, we will see if you are truly worthy of standing beside my daughter. Ethan forced a smile. Great. Love a good mystery test. Commander Vorik stepped forward, holding a small metallic device. It was shaped like a cube, its surface glowing with mysterious energy. This is a judgment cube, Vorik explained. It will present you with 3 different scenarios. Each one will test your honor, loyalty, and integrity. You must respond with what you believe is the right choice. Ethan frowned. And if I fail? The Emperor's expression darkened. Then you will be deemed unworthy, and will never leave this palace alive. Ethan gulped. No pressure, huh? Vorik smirked and pressed a button on the cube. A shimmering holographic image appeared in the air. Scenario 1. The Betrayal. The first image showed a Dravok soldier standing at the edge of a battlefield, wounded and desperate. Beside him, an enemy soldier lay unconscious. A voice echoed from the cube. You are given a choice. Kill the enemy while he is weak, or spare him, knowing he may return to fight another day. Ethan stared at the image. This was a test of mercy. He thought about Earth's history, how wars had been fought for centuries, and how true warriors understood when to strike and when to show mercy. After a moment, he said firmly, I would spare him. Murmurs filled the chamber. Many Dravok warriors scowled. To them, showing mercy was a sign of weakness. The Emperor's expression remained unreadable. Vorik pressed the cube again. Your answer has been recorded. Next scenario. Scenario 2. The Temptation. The hologram shifted, now showing a pile of glowing Dravok treasure, golden artifacts, rare crystals, and ancient relics of immense value. The voice spoke again. You have been entrusted with great riches that do not belong to you. No one will know if you take some for yourself. Do you take the treasure or leave it untouched? Ethan frowned. He knew this was a test of greed. On Earth, he had seen how people were corrupted by power and wealth. But he also knew that true honor meant doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. I leave it untouched, Ethan said. Honor isn't about what others see. It's about the choices you make when no one is looking. More murmurs filled the chamber. This time, a few of the nobles nodded in approval. Vorik's expression darkened as he activated the cube again. Your answer has been recorded. Final scenario. Scenario 3. The Ultimate Sacrifice. The last image flickered into view. This time, it was a burning building, collapsing under flames. Inside, a Dravok child was trapped, crying out for help. The voice echoed one last time. You can run to safety and live, or risk your life to save the child. What do you do? Ethan didn't hesitate. I saved the child. The moment he spoke, the entire room fell into dead silence. Many of the Dravok nobles gasped, shocked by his instant decision. Even Emperor Korvax's expression changed slightly, just for a second, but enough for Ethan to notice. Vorik, however, scowled. You say that easily, human, but do you truly understand what you are saying? You would risk your own life for another. Ethan looked him straight in the eye. Yes. Vorik's hands clenched into fists. He turned to the Emperor. This human speaks as if he is noble, but words are not proof. He has not shown that he truly understands honor. Emperor Korvax studied Ethan for a long moment. Then, slowly, he rose from his throne. The trial is complete, he declared, and I have made my decision. The tension in the room was unbearable. Ethan's heart pounded. Was this it? Would he be executed? Finally, the Emperor spoke. Ethan Carter, you have passed the trial of honor. The room erupted in shocked gasps. Even Vorik's face twisted in disbelief. Ethan blinked. Wait, really? Korvac stepped forward, his golden eyes locking onto Ethan's. You have shown mercy when you had power. You have resisted greed when you had opportunity. And you have chosen selflessness, even in the face of danger. These are the traits of true honor. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. So, I'm not gonna die. The Emperor smirked slightly. Not today. Zalvanna stepped forward, a rare smile on her face. You did well, Ethan. He exhaled. Yeah, well, I think I lost 10 years of my life from stress. But I'll take the win. The Emperor turned to the gathered nobles. Let it be known that Ethan Carter has proven himself worthy. He shall stand beside my daughter as part of the royal family of the Dravok Empire. The chamber filled with a mix of cheers and grumbles. Some accepted the decision. Others clearly still resented him. As Ethan stood there, he realized something. Winning the trials was just the beginning. Now he had to survive life in the royal court. And something told him that would be even harder. Ethan Carter had thought the trials of the worthy were the hardest part of his new life. But he was wrong. Winning the trials meant he was now officially engaged to Princess Zalvanna and accepted into the Dravok royal family. However, that did not mean everyone was happy about it. The court was filled with whispers. Some nobles bowed respectfully, but others refused to even acknowledge him. The resentment was clear. A human, an outsider, had passed the trials that many Dravok warriors had failed. To some, this was an insult to their traditions. And to others, it was an opportunity to get rid of him. Kellerok roared and charged. Ethan barely dodged the first swing. The blade slashed through metal like butter. Zalvanna attacked from the side, but Kellerok blocked her strike and sent her crashing into a console. Ethan's mind raced. Kellerok was too strong in close combat. He needed an advantage. Then he saw it, a power core behind Kellerok's throne. Ethan dodged another attack and fired his blaster at the core. The shot overloaded the system, sending a burst of energy across the room. Kellerok stumbled, his armor sparking. Zalvanna seized the moment. She leaped forward and plunged her blade into Kellerok's chest. The warlord gasped, his eyes widening. You are not worthy. With one final push, she sent him crashing to the ground. The alarms blared louder. The ship was going critical. We have to go, Ethan shouted. The team ran through the corridors as explosions rocked the ship. They barely made it back to their transport. As they escaped, Ethan watched as the Iron Fang was engulfed in flames. Kellerok's fleet, leaderless and confused, began retreating. The battle was over. A new beginning. Back on Dravos Prime, the people cheered. Kellerok was defeated, and the threat of war had ended. Ethan stood beside Zalvanna on the royal balcony, looking down at the massive crowd. You did well, she said. Ethan chuckled. Not bad for a human, huh? She smiled. Not bad at all. Emperor Korvac stepped forward. Ethan Carter, today you have proven yourself not only as a warrior, but as one of us. The Emperor raised a royal insignia and placed it in Ethan's hands. From this day forward, you are a Prince of Dravos. The crowd roared with approval. Ethan looked at Zalvanna, who gave him a knowing smile. He had started as an outsider, a human caught in an alien empire.